It's been another one of those very long days. It started at around 5:30 a.m. as we joined the queue, possibly the biggest queue so far, to watch day, 2.5 of Johnny Depp's evidence, his first full day of cross-examination at the hands of Amber Heard's attorney Ben Rottenborn. It was a hot ticket, and so it was important to be there. And afterwards, after we heard what was basically a day of two halves, we had a very, very dull morning and a very, very lively afternoon. I was able to sit down and meet on my park bench Debbie, a Johnny Depp superfan, who gave me her take on the afternoon's events. I'll be back at the end to say goodbye and point you in the direction of the various things that are going on with reporting Depp v. Heard, but enjoy this conversation.
Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
Fine, Nick.
It's Debbie, the Johnny Depp superfan. Almost first in the queue, almost every day of this 2-week
Yes.
period. And staying for how long?
I'm going to be leaving around May 5th.
Okay, so you're going to get the bulk of the trial in, aren't you?
Yeah,
Well,
hopefully.
I met Debbie on the very first day. She was with her friend Yvonne, who you've already met before, and I wanted to get Debbie on today. It's starting to rain quite hard, so this is going to be a short interview, but I wanted to get Debbie on today with my notepad because so much came out in, I think, the last session, of today.
Yeah.
Because we were subjected to one of those cross-examinations where Johnny Depp, who was on the stand all day today, was basically being asked to verify that he'd written certain texts. And some of
Yes.
these were texts in which he used some pretty horrible language about Amber Heard.
Yeah, pretty
And
graphic.
Pretty graphic. And then we got into video and audio recordings, didn't we,
Yes.
this afternoon? And I think
Yes.
it's those, do you want to focus on those, or what would you like to talk about?
Probably so. And the texts. There were a lot of texts that I feel like were taken out of context. When you only read a half a sentence or one text out of a string of 5 or 10, it can be taken the wrong way.
And that's how they're being admitted into evidence, aren't
Yes,
they? They're
it
being
is.
admitted into evidence as almost single texts, which
Yes.
didn't happen in the UK trial. We
Right,
had a whole reams of texts which
Yeah.
the judge was allowed to come to conclusions about the context, but these are just being submitted
Yeah.
purely, I think, to show that Johnny Depp is not the Southern gentleman he likes to portray himself as.
Yeah, something like that. And a lot of times they didn't even show who they were from. I can understand them redacting the senders, but in a lot of cases they just had the text and not even whether they were Johnny or Amber or who was talking.
But
So it's hard to keep track of that.
But I mean, I don't want to use, this is a family YouTube channel, so I don't want to use too much foul language. But
Right.
there was some pretty extreme, I would say. I mean,
Yeah.
I can use the vernacular every now and then.
Yes, I can too.
And journalists' newsrooms are not shy of dropping the odd
True.
F-bomb or C-bomb.
True.
But there was, real loathing in those texts, and I think
Yes.
no one would deny that. Would they?
Yes, but I know, having been married for 51 years, there have been times in my early marriage, it takes a while to get used to each other. And when you're younger, there's more fighting and making up and so forth. And sometimes that loathing is just a momentary thing. It's not a sign of real, true loathing, the kind that you would have for somebody forever.
Well, we know that they had a very passionate relationship,
Yes,
and we know
yes.
that Johnny Depp is loquacious. He likes to
Uh-huh.
play with words, and,
Right.
and clearly some of the stuff that came up today. I mean,
Yes.
it was quite clearly a joke.
Yes.
But there
And
was some
taken out
real
of
venom.
context,
There was some real
yes.
venom in there, and so they did what they were doing in the English trial, where they built up his drug use and alcohol
Yeah.
abuse, and they made a really big play of that. And I think they successfully did it more so than they did in the UK. In the
Yeah.
UK, Johnny Depp was very happy to admit drinking and drug abuse. He was more reserved and more guarded this time, but they went out of their way to pick up
Bring it in.
an awful lot of it, and they had things like problems with his liver, which we
Yes,
hadn't heard about,
yeah.
which suggests that he was really caning it, certainly
Yes,
in this sort of
yes.
2012-2013 period. But partly because it's raining and we'd both like to go indoors soon, I'm going to skip to the audio and the video that we saw this afternoon. Now, we had the infamous cupboard smashing kitchen incident. Now, that's been all over the internet for years, hasn't it? But this will have been the first time a jury has seen it. And I have to say, sitting there in the courtroom with these massive screens playing it at top volume, it was intimidating.
Yeah. And I can't
don't
say
tell me you wouldn't have been intimidated had you been...
I probably would have backed up anyway, at least. The fact that she was recording it and moving closer and almost seemed like she was taking some glee out of it.
We ought to do some context to this. So if you've not seen this, in fact, I've got this video so I can put it in this YouTube video. It is of a, let's face it, drunk Johnny Depp. I don't think he was ready to admit that he was drunk, but he said he was probably drunk. It was morning time. You probably know more about this than I do. It was daytime anyway.
It was daytime.
And he was smashing around the kitchen. Whilst he was smashing around the kitchen, Amber Heard started recording him smashing around the kitchen. She got a shot of him trying to get an empty wine glass, smashing and breaking some kitchen cabinet doors. I think he threw something onto the floor that smashed.
Sounded like a glass.
Sounded like a glass.
Sounded like a glass.
And then he poured himself a, what did they call it? A mega pint in court, which caused something of a laugh in court as Johnny Depp queried the use of the term mega pint. And said that he was just pouring himself a large glass of red wine. And then he spotted that Amber Heard was filming him. He picked up the phone and the phone was presumably thrown or
out of place, yes. It was definitely out of place.
So, and then the final shot was Amber Heard switching off the recording. So Johnny Depp, not in a good way, drinking a lot, smashing things, and also potentially understandably angry that he was being filmed by his wife. So but my point was, seeing this in the courtroom was shocking, and that jury won't have seen that video before.
Probably not.
And he wasn't being violent towards Amber Heard.
He was not being violent.
Definitely being violent.
Yes. But that's something he has admitted, that he smashes things, not people. In the past, he's smashed hotel rooms. He's had his share of that kind of thing, but he's never used it against a person in terms of the smashing and wrecking or whatever he was doing. And even the kitchen cabinets, those were not perhaps the most sturdy cabinets. They were made of thin surroundings of wood with glass.
You'd make a great politician, you really would.
I have cabinets I've slammed before and they don't break.
But it built a picture this afternoon. We had audio of him threatening to cut himself. Now, that sounded to me a horrendous situation to be in.
Yes.
Not just for him.
Right.
If I was in a room with someone with a knife threatening to cut themselves, and he's a powerful man. There's no two ways about it. He is bigger than her. He is the male in the relationship. He's got a knife and he is acting irrationally.
Yes.
Now that sounded like a horror movie. That didn't sound like a good environment to be in.
Yes. And I don't know what his mental state was at that point in time.
Well, it didn't sound good, did it?
No, it did not.
But I mean, should he have been putting his spouse into that kind of position?
Was she at, I don't know that they really mentioned the date for that.
No, they didn't.
They didn't say what date it was.
And he was asking that question and he wasn't getting an answer. Why do you think that's significant?
Because I think if he had already asked for a divorce, if he was at the end of the relationship and felt desperate, I can see where he might have been in a different mental state than if it occurred well before the divorce was mentioned or the divorce proceedings were mentioned. I just don't know.
What do you make of this text exchange? Thank you for your letter, I love you. Thank you for mine. The only reason we go for the throat is love. My throat is yours, says Amber Heard. You're going to be the death of me, but I don't care. Johnny Depp says, I have other uses for your throat that do not include injury.
Right. Love making? Yeah,
'Cause
that's a
that was
hard.
early on in their relationship, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And and then there's the other text where he apologizes. I will
Yeah.
not allow myself to stoop to such odious behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like an apology after a fight, and I know that the constant refrain is that there is no evidence of violence. But
Right.
what you've got is you've got bruises, you've got profound and profuse apologies, not just to Amber Heard, but you've got emails to other people saying his behavior that he knows was beyond the
Yeah.
pale. You've
Yeah.
got alcohol and drug abuse. You've got and you've got these really threatening videos and audio tapes that we heard earlier today, which build a picture very, very different to the sort of person that he is trying to portray.
Yes, yes. And he admits he struggled with alcohol and drug abuse all his life. Being addicted to oxycodone is a bane on our society and a very bad problem everywhere. Oxycodone is a terrible drug. And if he was taking that for pain, I can see where that would definitely have affected his mood and possibly have been a factor in all of this. Very hard to get over it.
But do you not think it's entirely possible that he might have been so out of it that he may have committed acts of violence against his wife, because that's what she's alleging, and that
Yes.
this whole narrative that she's making all this up because she's a gold digger
Yeah.
is just continuing the abuse?
Yes. I don't know whether she's a gold digger. I don't know whether she was really truly in love with Johnny. I'd like to think she was. I'd like to think he was. That's the reason you want to get married. But I don't know what the narrative is truly. I don't know what it led to. It was a very, he was taking drugs and so forth. I don't know that I would believe that he would hit her. All of his life, he hit things, not people. So it's hard to believe that he would do that regardless.
And no one else has made these allegations against him. I'm going
Right,
to let you go inside very
exactly.
soon, because it
Yes,
really is raining
yes.
now. But just one final question then.
Uh-huh.
If the jury here decides that he was the abuser and she was the victim, will you accept it? Because there has to be some closure eventually, doesn't there? And if you get a judge on one side of the Atlantic and a jury on the other, looking at all the evidence, make that decision, will you accept it?
I guess we'll have to, but I also think that in the past, this would not have been a big deal. As far back in Hollywood as the times of like Errol Flynn, swashbucklers, and so forth, there have always been these kinds of volatile relationships, and you've heard about them for decades. And so I think that if it hadn't been for the Me Too movement, I don't think this would have been such a big deal.
But the Me Too movement is a good thing, isn't it? The Me Too movement brought the abuse that was going on behind closed doors to light. It held people accountable for their actions.
Yes, but I think it's gone to an extreme. I do think it's gone overboard. People are getting affected that it's almost like a whisper turns into a conviction. And I don't think that it's completely fair anymore. It wasn't fair before, but I think that it's not fair now either. And it's swung, instead of being on this side, now it's this side of the center line.
But you're not suggesting that Johnny Depp's a victim of the Me Too movement, are you?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, I am. Because I don't think their relationship would have come to the conclusions and the media circus that it has become if not for the Me Too movement.
Debbie, thank you for your patience sitting here in the freezing rain. I'm so cold, I'm going to end the interview. But Debbie, I really appreciate you coming and doing a park bench interview at the end of the second week of the Johnny Depp trial. Much more of this to come. I mean, we've got Johnny Depp back on the stand on Monday, then we've got Amber Heard to come as well at some stage, all these depositions.
Right, yeah.
Loads of interesting stuff on its way, but this was I mean, it was at times shocking, wasn't it, what we heard today? Yeah, anyone
Sure
would be
it
shocked,
would.
especially if
Sure
you're a
it
juror
was.
coming to this for the first time and knew
Yeah.
nothing about it.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know what their conclusions are going to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks to Debbie, and thanks to you for watching this episode of reportingdepvheard.net. If you'd like to donate to keep this going, then please do go to reportingdepvheard.net/newsletter. You can sign up for a one-off or one-time only donation. You can keep getting newsletters for the duration of the trial, and also it powers what I'm doing with this YouTube and podcast bits and bobs. So if you're up for that, I'd be enormously grateful. I've also got some interesting plans with regard to what's been going on at the court over the last couple of weeks, which will require a certain amount of funding. But I'm going to speculate in the hope that people will go for it and it will make a lot of sense. If I'm talking nonsense in a way that doesn't really make any sense, all you have to do is subscribe and all will be revealed over the weekend. If you'd rather not, keep watching the YouTube videos, keep liking and subscribing, and I'm very grateful to you for all your interest in my reporting of this case. Have a great weekend. Take care.